for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the fall!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Friday, February 28. You're probably used to seeing Matt O'Han in on Friday nights at 10 p.m. because it usually is Matt. But Matt called me a couple of days ago and said, Tony, I'm going to be running a marathon on the weekend. Marathon? Really? Where? In New Hampshire, he said. I said, okay, can you take my spot? And I said, Matt, I work radio 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Monday to Friday. I work TV 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. I work the Sick Podcast 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday. I work the Sick Podcast in French, en français, Fridays at 2 p.m. live. I also host the CF Montreal podcast on Mondays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. live. Of course, I'd be happy to take your spot, Matt. What else am I going to do on a Friday night? So, in all transparency, you're watching this at 10 p.m., but because I do want to have a little bit of a life, and so do our collaborators, I would imagine, and I like to have people come over on Fridays, or I like to go out and visit people or go out, this podcast was recorded a little bit earlier in the day, but it was recorded after the news broke that the Montreal Canadiens broke at 1:45 p.m. earlier today, that forward Kirby Dach, who was hurt last week on Saturday night in Ottawa, underwent successful surgery to his right knee again. The procedure was performed in Montreal by Dr. Thierry Poyot, and a full recovery is expected before the start of next season. If Kirby Dach wouldn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all. Without further ado, I bring in my guests tonight on the Sick Podcast from the Montreal Gazette, HabsInsideOut.com, or HockeyInsideOut.com, Stu Cowan, and from Global TV Montreal, Brian Wilde. Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing well, Tony. How are you doing? The hardest working man in radio, podcast, whatever you want to call it.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm the hardest working man, Stu, because I don't live with everyone else, and so I don't follow them around. I don't know how hard they work. I do know I work very hard. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Brian, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you.
Okay, good. Guys, look, I want to bring up, and we showed this on JC earlier this evening on TVA Sports. It's a chart that will show the amount of games that Kirby Dach has missed. 2022-2023, he missed 24 games. 2023-2024, he missed 80 games. And with the games he's going to miss between now and the end of the season, that's going to be 25 games. That means in the last 3 years, Kirby Dach has missed 129 games. Guys, Kirby Dach has been in the National Hockey League for 6 seasons. And by the way, the numbers I brought up were just with the Canadiens, because he never played a full season with Chicago. In 22, he had played 70. In 21, he had played 18. And in 2020, he had played 64. Kirby Dach's been in the NHL for 6 years. If he would play 6 full years, that would be 82 times 6. Guys, help me with the math. But that
492.
492. 492. He's going to have played 269. That's a lot of games missed. Stu, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on an either very unlucky and or fragile Kirby Dach.
Combination of both, maybe. You go back to the World Juniors, talk about bad luck. Remember, he was named captain of Team Canada, and then he broke his wrist in a pre-tournament game against Russia, which started off his injury problems at the NHL level. And that hit that he took last season from Toronto didn't look that bad, right? And blew out his ACL and his MCL, and then whatever happened Saturday, same type of thing, and surgery on the same knee again. And you got to wonder now, mentally and physically, how he comes back from this, right? I mean, it's the same knee, operated twice in 2 years. The mental part, the missing so much action, everything else. It's going to be difficult to see. It's going to be difficult for him coming back next season, which is the last year of his contract with the Canadiens.
Brian, if I was him, at some point, I would pick up the phone and I would call a friend. And I'll tell you who I would call. And I don't know if he's a friend, but if I was him, I'd pick up the phone and I'd call Andrei Markov. Because if there's one guy who knows something about getting hurt on his knees and going through a couple of ACLs, and we don't know the extent of this injury, by the way, but we do know that it was serious enough to require season-ending surgery. But Stu's right. There's so many questions as to the first procedure that was performed, the rehabilitation that was undertaken, what they did with the strengthening of the knee, what he did in the offseason, what he did to take care of himself, what he did during the season, what his game shape was like, what his preparation was like, what his overall. There's so many questions, Brian, but unfortunately, I don't know if Kirby Dach's going to have enough time to answer them positively, because with 1 year left on his contract, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this guy's running out of time.
Well, the worst part is that this has gone from acute to chronic. And that's a huge moment in the history of a knee. Like, you have one problem like that and you don't revisit it, then it's a single solitary issue and you were better after it. But going acute to chronic with this second surgery. And then, of course, the other thing that's really unfortunate for us from a knowledge point of view is there are 6 weeks left in the season, which is the recovery time of meniscus. So we don't have any clue if this is meniscus, MCL, ACL. All we know is it's October. But if they made the playoffs, could he be ready? He would be ready if it were just meniscus. So you kind of guess that maybe it's a little bit more than that they've written them off, or maybe they've written themselves off from making the playoffs, and so have worded it that way. But I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a ton of mystery to it, and considering we are reporters, we're not that fond of mystery. So we'll just have to live with wondering what exactly he had done on that knee. Perhaps they will be more forthcoming, but considering they told us only after practice concluded that he had a surgery, I don't really think they're going to be super forthcoming about the details of this surgery. So that leaves us waiting till October and hoping that he can recover.
Well, we showed up at practice this morning. We were asking right away, is there any update? No, maybe later today. And then after everybody had left, it came out. I mean, they obviously knew he was having surgery.
Of course.
This morning.
Well, and
as they're saying expected to make a full recovery before next season.
Yeah, and look, it's unbelievable the way the timing works out, right? The reporters are gone and they can't ask questions about Kirby Dach's injury. It's amazing the way the timing works into the hands of some teams sometimes in their favor. But look, all kidding aside, I mean, I had heard that, Tony expects some bad news coming up. And when the Canadiens said, we hope to have an update for you tomorrow, it's because there's probably a different opinion that's being seeked out, a second opinion, like was the case with Liney, right?
Liney, right. Some doctors said he needed surgery, and another one said he didn't, right? And
well, the Canadiens announced in the press release that Dr. Terry Poyo performed the surgery on Kirby Dach. Dr. Terry Poyo suggested the surgery for Patrick Liney. And then he went, which is the Canadiens doctor right away, by the way, I'm just doing the math here. And then he went for a second opinion. And then he ended up going for a third opinion. It's the third opinion that said, hey, listen, you don't need the surgery. We think that, you know what, you can get by without doing the surgery, doing a certain rehabilitation. You should be back within 3 months. And Patrick Liney, who was hurt in the middle of September, or late September, ended up returning to the Canadiens lineup on the 2nd of December. His first game back was against the New York Islanders. So, guys, let's talk about next year for a second. I know this year isn't over, and there's so many important games ahead. I think it's safe to say that, although not impossible, and the Canadiens are within striking distance, they're 5 points out of a wild card spot prior to tonight's games, and we'll see what happens on the weekend, that the odds are against the Canadiens to make the playoffs this year. Next year, is it safe to say that everyone in that organization won't be happy if they don't make the playoffs? Is it safe to say that next year?
I still think they're 2 years away from being a legitimate playoff contender. This season, they won 3 games in a row, and they went from 6 games out of the wild card spot to 5 points out of a wild card spot. They gained 1 point by winning 3 in a row. I still think they're a couple of years away. Would management be disappointed next season? Yeah, I mean, they went into this season with the goal of being in the mix, right? And they are in the mix right now. I think.
Yes.
When you consider the injuries they've had, they missed Laine, Caden Gooley out, now without Dach. Yeah. To be where they are right now is actually quite impressive.
Perfect. Okay.
Rebuild. So I think next year Demidov's going to come in. I mean, there's some people might think he's going to come in and score 40 goals. I mean, it's going to be an adjustment for him coming to the NHL, but he's coming. You got Michael Hage coming down the road. He's probably 2 years away. Jacob Fowler's probably a couple of years away. We're going to see now how Reinbacher develops. So I think they're a couple of years away from being at a point where they will be very disappointed if they don't make the playoffs.
Will the Canadiens make the playoffs this year? Will they make it next year? Go all the way with Betway. Get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. Brian, I'm going to rephrase it. I'll rephrase it. Brian, if you were Marty St. Louis, if you were Kent Hughes, if you were Jeff Gordon, with the goal of making the playoffs next year, would you be comfortable going into the season as Kirby Dach penciled in as your second line centerman?
Of course not.
Of course not.
I mean, he didn't have a very good year. He's minus 29, which is right now, I think, second worst behind only Bertuzzi for plus minus in the entire league. He's coming off another knee surgery. There's no reason to believe that he should be your second line center. And as far as disappointment in making the playoffs or not, it all depends on what they do with the 2C position. If they go and spend some money and bring in a guy like Sam Bennett, for example, then they'd have every belief that they could make the playoffs. They have the worst second line in the entire National Hockey League. So if that improves, they improve tremendously as a hockey team. Third and fourth lines, they're pretty good. First line, they're pretty good. But you can't be a competitive playoff hockey team with a terrible second line. So I think Demidov's going to come right into the NHL and be a 25-goal man. I think he is that good. I think if they get a second-line center who has a good 200-foot game and is proven and can make the play in the offensive zone, which is what they need because Demidov needs that. He doesn't know how to play defense at the NHL level. Patrick Laine needs that. He doesn't know how to play defense at the NHL level. But if the center can get the puck 200 feet up and they play most of these two great offensive players, the wingers play most of their hockey in the offensive zone, a lot of their shortcomings can be mitigated by that center. So in answer to Stu and your question, I'm saying they're going to be very disappointed if they spend $10 million to get a 2C, and they won't be disappointed at all if they go in next year as the 2C, hoping for Dach to recover or Owen Beck to be a guy that's ready.
Well, I think it's interesting going into this trade deadline too is that Kent Hughes isn't looking for draft picks anymore, right?
He said that flat out.
Yeah,
they're looking for players, and probably sort of like what they did with Dach and what they did with Alex Newhook, right? Those sort of young guys who have some NHL experience that they think can blossom under Marty St. Louis' system. It hasn't worked out so well for Kirby Dach. It hasn't worked out great for Alex Newhook either. I'm sure the Canadiens are disappointed in the way both of those guys have progressed or not progressed so far with the team. And with Demidov coming in, Brian and Tony, it's going to be interesting too. Where do you put him? Do you put him on the number one line with Suzuki and Caulfield?
No. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's a pecking order. I think you want to bring him in gradually. I think he will end up being, when all is said and done, a top two playmaker on the Montreal Canadiens, along with Nick Suzuki. And I think players that have that kind of skill set, I don't think you put them together. I think you actually try and balance the lines. The Canadiens, Brian said, they owe it to Demidov, though. He's going to come into the National Hockey League. Brian is right. He does have a lot of talent, and he is that good, but they owe it to him to give him a centerman that can help him, that can guide him, that could be a mentor to him. They might have to bring in a centerman that's actually older than the desired age of players that they'd like to bring in here. But I'm going to tell you this, guys. This is very important. Not a lot of people are going to say this, but I'm going to say it right now. It's probably because they were unlucky in all of this. But I think we can say that the Montreal Canadiens have officially lost that trade, the Kirby Dach trade.
Well, maybe. Like, are you comparing it to Romanov, or are you playing it to Frank Nazar? Who are we comparing it to?
Well, I'm saying that they gave up a couple of draft picks and they gave up a young defenseman, albeit they have plenty of both. Yeah, and they got a player who just didn't work out.
Well, but the other guy has to actually work out for you to lose it. And I think Nazar will work out. I think he's going to be a really good hockey player.
We don't
proven anything.
He's got 4 goals yet.
He's got 4 goals. We don't know.
But he's still really young. He's still really young.
We don't know who the Canadiens would have drafted with those picks had they kept them.
That's true.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Right?
Absolutely. You can't argue. Talking about that center position, though, like in terms of it didn't work out with Kirby Dach. I mean, it is a crapshoot. Like, it was a crapshoot for LA. They tried Pierre-Luc Dubois, failed miserably there. And then he goes to another team, and they're suddenly one of the best teams in the NHL. And they also did a crapshoot in Washington with Strom. And he ends up actually blossoming the moment that they get him. So up the middle, sometimes it takes a lot of years and a lot of experience. And that's why I think Kirby Dach gets probably another chance if they can't find anybody to sign, because I think ultimately they think Michael Hage in 2 years is the guy there, or 3.
Yeah,
but that's a long wait. Defending Stu's not next year plan,
guys.
I wonder though with Demidov is like, I would really think about putting him on the number 1 line with Suzuki and Caulfield. I mean, Slavkovsky's got 10 goals this season on that line, right?
But he's playing better.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at Emil Heineman has as many goals as Slavkovsky.
Okay, perfect.
I don't games. He gets like 4 minutes a game less of ice time, and like I think to just hand that,
but also plays 4th line opposition.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, important. To me, Emil Heineman could play on any line. Like I would have loved to see Marty try him on that 1st line.
No, but
just a really good hockey player. Really
I understand Stu's point. Okay, because
I made an argument before. I wouldn't be shocked. I took some heat for this moving forward.
Yeah.
If Heineman, in the long run, might end up being a better player than Slavkovsky.
Whoa! Wow! I'll give you heat too. I like Heineman a lot. I think the ceiling is nowhere close, though. But I'm going to say this: I see Demidov and Suzuki playing together at one point. Great players usually end up playing together. All right, great players. We've seen teams in the National Hockey League. For example, Reinhart can play center. He's playing on the 1st line with Verhaeghe and Barkov, right? And Barzal, who's a center, was playing wing with Bo Horvat at one point. And Leon Draisaitl, who's a centerman right now, is playing on another line than Connor McDavid, but it's happened often that they put them together, all right? We're going to see them together at one point.
Yeah, for sure. I will say this, though. In an ideal world, considering the size of Suzuki and the size of Caulfield and what their respective strengths are, don't you think the perfect complement to that line, with all things being equal and everyone being at their best, is that Slavkovsky be their winger over Demidov?
I just don't think you give it to him, though. I mean, I'm talking about Heineman. Last year at training camp before last season, Heineman started training camp on the line with Suzuki and Caulfield. They put him there to see what he would look like, right? It lasted a little while, and then he was a late cut at training camp and he went down. But I'm wondering if there's a bit of Heineman, you notice him every shift he's on the ice.
No, you're right. No, what I'm saying is,
and it's not always the same thing. It's a back check. It could be a hit. It could be a forward check. It could be a shot. It could be a speed. And you don't notice Slavkovsky every shift he's on.
No, but you brought up Demidov. Like I said, at one point he's going to play with him, right? But what I'm saying is, Brian, if Slavkovsky reaches his potential, isn't he just what the doctor ordered for Suzuki and Caulfield?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're looking for a force there to be F1, because Caulfield's not a very good F1 in terms of size and, getting the dump in and winning the puck. But Slafkovsky in his career so far actually has not been a great puck battler. He should be better at it considering his size, but he reaches with his stick way too much instead of engaging his own body. Exactly, instead of his own body, but he's improving in that area. And another area is really improving is he's finally starting to go in front of the net for screens and deflections and tip-ins, and realizing if he gets inside position, he could take little 50-foot Lane Hudson shots toward the goal and deflect those all day long if he could get the acumen in that area. Yeah. So he's the right guy for sure in terms of size and footprint, but so far he hasn't played like that.
Guys, and he has said you have to play like Brady Tkachuk to have success.
Yeah.
I see him being Ryan Smith. I'll say it again and again. He should think he's Ryan Smith, who got 380 NHL goals, and he spent most of his time in front of the net. And if he would just watch Ryan Smith footage and spend like all practice not shooting as much as just being in front of the net and trying to deflect pucks, like the way Lane Hudson can dance along the blue line and find himself some space and get it towards goal like he did last night. There was a moment in time where Slafkovsky was in front of the net and Hudson danced and he got it to goal, and I think the shot only had 40 miles per hour on it. And I've seen you play, Stu. You're a real nice hockey player. You would have tipped that one. Yeah, Slafkovsky missed.
Well, Brady Tkachuk, a big reason why the Canadiens didn't draft Brady Tkachuk is they didn't think he could skate well enough. That's why they took Kotkaniemi. And Kevin Bieksa, during the Four Nations face-off, mentioned this, and he said Brady Tkachuk is probably the worst skater on the ice.
I heard that. That was so
Canada-US game. He's probably the worst skater on the ice in that game. But he wins every puck battle. He finishes every check. He goes hard to the net. He does all that stuff. Slafkovsky's is bigger, skates better, more physical, a lot more gifts, physical gifts, but he's got to use them, and he does have to play like that.
Balance, you guys, is a funny thing for a hockey player. It's a funny thing, balance. You can be 6'5" and lose to a 5'10" guy. Look at Lane Hudson. He's the smallest guy out there. He wins his fair share because he's got balance. Cole Caulfield wins his fair share. He's got balance. And Brendan Gallagher wins his fair share, if not more, because he's got good balance. And Mike McCarron, when they drafted him at 25 overall, that guy couldn't win a puck battle to save his life as a Montreal Canadian.
Lane Hudson and Cole Caulfield have been the smallest guys on the ice probably their whole life, pretty much, right?
Correct. And they learned how to do it.
Learned how to do it.
Yes.
Slafkovsky was a man when he was like 15 years old, playing against boys who just, that's one of the reasons the first season he was skating around with his head down and getting laid out all the time. He wasn't used to getting up.
Eric Lindros syndrome.
He's not used to playing against guys who are just as big, maybe not as big.
He's learning it now, though, Stu.
Strong as him. And
I think we're seeing strides there, Stu.
It's an adjustment. And you watch Lane Hudson, it's amazing how many puck battles he wins against bigger guys just because he's done it his whole life. He wouldn't be in the NHL today if he couldn't do it, especially as a defenseman.
There's so much to it. You got to roll off guys. You got to position.
Anticipation. How many pucks does Lane Hudson bat out of the air that are
use their own weight against them? There's a ton to it.
But Slafkovsky, when I was mentioning with Heineman, just like Heineman gives everything.
You love Heineman.
I'm a big Heineman fan. I liked him from the first time I saw him. He plays with pace. And that's one of the things Marty St. Louis keeps going about Slafkovsky. He's got to move his feet and play with pace. And Heineman plays with pace every time he's on the ice. And you're right, he's on the fourth line, playing against not the other team's top line either. But to me, at this point, Emil Heineman, and I asked Marty about that the other day, and I said, I noticed something every shift he's on the ice, and I imagine it's the same for you. And Marty said, and it's always he plays the game that's in front of him, is the way Marty said it. You're not guaranteed you're going to have an offensive zone shift. You're not guaranteed you're going to have a decent defensive zone shift. You have to play the game in front of you. And Emil Heineman is really, really – and kudos to Kent Hughes. I wrote a column this week in that wasn't a throw-in in the Toffoli deal. Like, he wanted Heineman.
He demanded
that deal.
He demanded that guy.
Part of that deal.
Yeah. Okay. So, guys, I have to tell you, when Dobes came up, and he was 5-0-1 in his first 6 games, and his numbers were great, obviously. Not only the wins, but the save percentage of goals against average. I said, okay, I think we're at the point here where they could probably go 1 game each or ride the winning goalie. I was very surprised, though, to hear earlier today, because Dobes in the last month has played 2 games. His numbers are not good. He's been lit up a bit. I was very surprised with the Canadiens basically playing for their playoff lives here, 5 points out of a wild card spot. It's not a back-to-back. They play Saturday night, then they play again on Monday. Was very surprised to hear the Canadiens say that Dobes is starting on Saturday. Brian?
Yeah, I would have thought that they would go with Montembeault, and only when it was back-to-back night after night that they would go with Dobes at this point. But maybe it had something to do with the fact that Montembeault was really not very good yesterday. I mean, you could see he was really, really fighting the puck. So perhaps they're playing a hunch that he may fight it even more than he did on Thursday night.
Well, after practice today, my question to Marty, I was going to ask him, I was going to phrase it exactly. I imagine Montembeault starting tomorrow, and are you going to ride him now all the way through? And then my buddy Herb Zurkowski beat me to a punch. He got a question before me, and Marty said, no, Dobes is playing tomorrow. And I was
two guys at practice. What is it, 1997 there, Stu?
I was like you, Tony. I was really surprised because I thought they would just like ride Montembeault right now. As I said, 3 wins in a row, and they only gained 1 wild card race. It's so hard. It's easy to fall out of the race. I tweeted something like that this morning, and Jeremy Filosa said, yeah, but if they lost all 3 games, it'd be 11 points out. And correct. But it's very easy to fall out of the wild card race, and it's very hard to stay in it. And that's why I thought they would ride Montembeault until he was a little shaky last night, but he still got the win but Marty explained, he says that Dobes hasn't played since Super Bowl weekend. It's a long time, right? Especially for a young
time. Wow.
So they don't want him sitting that long, and they obviously have enough confidence in him that they think he can come back tomorrow in Buffalo and give them a strong performance.
Prorated were 91 points for the playoff spot, prorated, and they'd have to go 15-8 in the final 23. That's a tall order, but 18-8 was an even taller order.
Yeah, so, exactly. As I said, you look at 3 wins in a row, you figure, okay, they gained 1 point. The team.
So Stu,
around.
You talked about asking Marty questions, and we'll get a question that he was asked last night in just a second, not before we talked about some of our sponsors. With Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also, get ready for the Spring Break Power Weeks at Playground. The cards are hot, like me, and the vibes are chill at Playground from February 27th to March 9th with 12 exciting events and a cool $400,000 in guarantees. So get ready to stack your chips and soak up the action. This break is no bluff. Visit playground.ca for details. Brian's laughing that I said that Playground's hot like me. Brian, if no one else is going to tell me, I'm going to tell myself. All right? Okay, good.
Well, it's all good with me. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're the
all
hottest,
right, guys.
man.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Arber Xhekaj played 3 seconds yesterday in the third period. I want you to hear Marty St. Louis last night after the game.
Pas joué en troisième, mais c'était pas le plan. C'était pas le plan de pas le faire jouer du tout. Mais c'est parce que qu'est-ce qui est arrivé, c'est qu'il allait retourner, puis on a eu 2 power play back-to-back. Puis là, ça faisait trop longtemps. Là. Je voulais pas le mettre dans une situation pour échouer, genre. Tu sais, quand ça fait une vingtaine de minutes que tu es assis sur le banc. Fait que Xhekaj, cette saison, il me donne du très bon hockey. Je trouvais pas que c'était vraiment sa game à soir. Puis je serais le premier à te le dire. Mais c'était pas les intentions d'être assis sur le banc.
There you have it, guys. So Marty St. Louis says basically, look, it wasn't the plan to bench him the entire third period. We had a 5-on-3 power play. He wasn't on it. Then all of a sudden, time goes by, and I figure he's cold. If I put him out there, I'd probably be hurting him more than anything. Guys, I believe what he said.
So do I. And he was asked about it again today.
But I also believe that Arber was punished for what was a mistake in terms of play selection on San Jose's third goal.
Yeah, at the blue line when he tried to jump up and catch the puck and it went past him. And I'm sure it's something that Marty's probably spoken with him about and Robida has spoken with him about is the risk management, right? And that was a play that they figured, I'm sure they've talked about it. And you hear other people say, oh, how come they don't bench Matheson? How come they don't bench these guys? A veteran's going to be treated different than a rookie, or a rookie than a young player, I should say. And it's something they've been working on with Xhekaj. But St. Louis was asked about it again today, and I have it in front of me because I was just transcribing my quotes from practice earlier. I'll read to what he said. He said, I just didn't feel it was his game about Xhekaj. This is St. Louis talking. In the third period, we were chasing the game. I thought Lane was going good, so I was trying to give a little bit of extra ice time to Lane. My goal was not to ice Xhekaj the whole third period. We got to a point where I felt like, okay, he got the message. But then it wasn't the right matchup for him to get on the ice, and then we got back-to-back power plays, and now we're down to about 7 minutes left in the game, and he's been sitting for almost too long. So I kind of missed that window. At that point, I feel you're setting him up for failure. It's a 3-3 game. I wasn't planning on that. It just went that way. But we need Jacko, and he's fine. He's going to play in Buffalo. I'm not overthinking my decision, and I don't think he is either. So I think it's just a case of – and he makes a point. He did he sat him out. He wanted to send the message. He sent the message. He put him back on the ice. It was a bad matchup, so he called him right back off. Power play. 7 minutes left in the game. He hasn't played for a while. I know in one of the TV timeouts, Xhekaj got off the bench and skated around a bit to try and get his legs warm. And I know from talking with Mike Pizzetta, who's used to that fourth line role and going a long time without playing, and he said, when you say you missed 17 minutes or 16 minutes of the game, it's longer than that, because throw in the TV timeouts, maybe there's an intermission in between, and it's really hard to get going. So I think he wanted to send a message to Xhekaj about that the risk management thing, which is something they've been harping on since coming back from the Four Nations face-off, and sent a message, and then just the way the game flowed.
Guys. It's a great explanation, okay? And I'm not just going to say what I'm going to say because, I'm Marinaro and I like to stir the pot every now and then, all that stuff. I'm going to tell you what I can't put myself in Xhekaj's head. I have a hard enough time putting myself in my own head. I don't even know what I'm thinking half the time. You got to think that this guy was like really pissed off driving home last night after the game saying, I make one mistake and the guy benches me the entire thing.
He knew he made a mistake, though, Tony. If you watch,
I saw it.
He smashed his stick on the ice. He knew he screwed up.
I saw it, right? But it's funny because we've been talking about rebuild. We've been talking about development. We've been talking about he knows when he makes mistakes. We've been talking about, the learning moments. We've been talking about after going to work with Adam Nicholas. You're supposed to continue playing. No, I'm not gonna crap on Marty St. Louis for going with guys that he trusted last night and not going with guys that he didn't, and not worry about whose feelings he's hurting, because he needs to win hockey games because he wants to make the playoffs and he owes it to his team who also wants to. But I'm saying you got to be thinking that Xhekaj's going home saying, every time I make a mistake, man, that's it. I got to pay the price. And coach didn't trust me tonight because he didn't.
I think he might have done that last year, Tony, but I think Arber really grew up, and he's spoken about it himself on and off the ice with what happened to him last year when he got sent down to Laval down there and realized, he said, I turned into a better pro after that. I don't think it was, when he went home last night, was he disappointed? For sure. He was probably even more disappointed in himself about making that mistake. And Marty's explanation afterwards, and one of Marty's best skill as a coach is probably his communication skills. And if Arber's hearing what Marty said today, he's trying to get Lane Hudson more ice time. It's a 3-3 game. I don't want to have him end up making another mistake that cost the game. It makes sense to me. But some defensemen have a shorter leash than other. Arber has a short leash, and Jaden Struble has an even shorter one at times. And it's part of developing these young defensemen and getting them to grow. Lane Hudson has a very long leash, on the other hand, right?
Yeah. Brian?
Very little to add, actually. Game management from the head coach position, which he handled beautifully, then communicated his position very nicely to the player. The player will be a little upset in the short run, and in the long run, he'll take a lesson and learn from it. Nothing to be too worried about from the organization's top to bottom.
We're going to talk about Pierre LeBrun and his report last night on RDS in just a minute. Now, before I talk to you about Bittt Tibi in that fridge behind me, you can't see it right now, but you did at the beginning of the show. But I do have a fridge behind me. They launched a new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for chilly winter days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. All right, okay. Let's get to Pierre LeBrun, who last night, with Alain Crête on RDS, said that Kent Hughes is telling teams that they already have many draft picks. They won't trade Jake Evans and Yoel Armia just because they're both upcoming UFAs. He wants serious trade offers, or he's willing to keep them on the Habs. Guys, which is totally normal, right? I mean, he has to say it. He's not going to say, by the way, come get them because I'm trading them to somebody. No, he's going to say, I have to like the offer or else they're going to stay here. Among the interested teams, Winnipeg, Toronto, Edmonton, New Jersey, and Minnesota. Stu Cowan, who's the only guy in the media, Brian, or I think he's the only guy, or at least he's the only guy that I see that does this, posts who the scouts are watching games at the Bell Center. Stu's nodding because he knows I'm saying the truth.
Yeah.
Okay. Look at this list. Anaheim, Boston, Calgary, Colorado, Dallas, Detroit, Edmonton, New Jersey, St. Louis, Washington, Winnipeg. Pierre mentioned Winnipeg's interested. They have a scout there. Toronto, they don't. Edmonton, they do. The Devils have 2. Minnesota Wild don't have any. There's something that's interesting about this list and last list of scouts at the game. I'm sure Stu will know what it is. Games out of all the teams that we've heard that are interested, the New Jersey Devils have had 2 scouts at both games.
Yeah.
This game and the game before. I don't know if they were in Ottawa, Stu. I wasn't there. I don't know if
you know what it is. Well, Andre Savard's at almost every game, right?
Yes.
He's based in Montreal. He's their service
Correct.
coach. But now they're bringing in a second guy. So that means
where there's smoke, there's fire. The Devils are
they
very
want more
interested
than
in
one
Jake
opinion, right? They don't want. They know what Andre Savard said and what
Yeah.
he reported, and now they're sending somebody else, not the second guess, but just have a second opinion to watch what Savard's seeing and maybe pick out things that Savard hasn't seen. Or so they just want. So when they go back to their GM, you're gonna have 2 guys saying, "No, I agree with what Andre's seen, and I saw this, and vice versa." But yeah, there's smoke, there's fire. No doubt.
Pierre LeBrun also said that to watch out for Minnesota because Joel Eriksson Ek is hurt. He's going to be out for the next couple of weeks, and that's a big blow, and that their penalty kill is really bad. Michael Russo, who covers the Minnesota Wild and has for the longest time and works for The Athletic, tweeted out last night at around 9:49 p.m. Eastern time while they were playing Utah, and they got obliterated. The Wild did. He said, okay, it's enough now. Guerin has to go out and get that PK tag team of Evans and Armia. Brian, how do you think this is going to go down?
I think they're going to get traded, and I think they're going to get traded as a partnership that will kill penalties at the 7th best rate in the National Hockey League currently. And there's some teams that can use that, and I think it's going to cost a 1st-round draft pick.
Evans is devastated. Evans is devastated. He's absolutely crushed. Wants to stay here. Wife wants to stay here.
Well, then don't ask for 5 years.
I hear you.
Well, you know what?
How much do you want to stay here? Because if you really want to stay here, don't ask for 5 years.
Well, when Kent Hughes was saying, we don't need draft picks anymore, and if I don't get a good deal, I'll just keep these guys. I believe him too, because Jake Evans, there's no guarantee what he's going to get as a free agent on July 1st, right? So if you're getting offered like 3rd-round pick or something for Jake Evans, and you still have a shot to stay in the mix for the playoffs, you keep him, right? And then at the end of the season, if he doesn't get what he thinks he was going to get from free agency, maybe you can re-sign him. And when I was talking about Emil Heineman before, and I'm probably the president of the Emil Heineman fan club, Jake Evans' production really dropped off offensively after Heineman got hurt.
Absolutely.
It really did. That line fell off quite a lot when Heineman left. So for Jake Evans, you said, Brian, I don't blame him. I really like Jake Evans. Anybody who's ever met him or been around him, he's a class guy, stand-up guy, got married.
Very much.
This is a life-changing contract for him, right? These guys all make a lot of money, but they retire young, and this is a contract that can set him up, him and his wife, and imagine they're going to have a family for the rest of their life. So I don't blame him. Try and get as much money as you can. And I think it'd be silly not to test the free agent.
And by the way,
the way things are going, he might not get as much as he thought he was going to get when he was so hot offensively.
And by the way, guys, personally, I'm Kent Hughes. I wouldn't give Jake Evans a 5-year deal of $4 million a year. That's me. Okay.
No.
Yeah. But he also doesn't want draft. Yeah.
But if I'm his agent and I'm Jake Evans and I sit down, I take a look at the Canadiens team, and they're not Kent Hughes' contracts. But I see Gallagher at 6.5, and I see Josh Anderson at 5.5, and I see Christian Dvorak at 4.4. I'm just going to talk about these guys for a second. Me and my agent look at each other and we say, I got more points than all these guys. I play just as many minutes. I'm on the ice when we're up a goal with 1 minute, 2 minutes left in the game. I kill penalties. I'm an elite penalty killer. I'm an elite face-off man on this team.
Ken Hughes says I didn't sign those contracts.
He does.
No, I'm going a different direction on my thoughts.
But Kent Hughes gave Kirby Dach $3.36 million or whatever it is, though.
Yeah, but here's my take on it.
But
here's my take on what you've just said. And you just made the argument that an agent and Jake are looking at the rest and saying, okay, if they're worth that, I'm worth this. And you are absolutely correct. But you are correct in terms of other teams who are in a different phase of what they need to win a championship.
Mm-hmm. Well,
the Canadiens are in the phase of integrating Michael Hage, integrating Owen Beck, integrating Oliver Kapanen. They're integrating their future. Whereas the Minnesota Wild, their future is right now. So when you make the argument about Jake Evans, it's a perfect argument. But it's the argument for other general managers, not Kent Hughes.
And the Devils rank 3rd on the PK right now in the NHL. It's not a weakness for them. I know Vegas had scouts a while ago at the Bell Center too, and they rank like 21st in the PK.
Maybe they want Savard.
And if you add Armia and Evans together on a team that's struggling on a PK, that helps your PK immediately.
Maybe they want Savards too.
Yeah.
By the way, Savard doesn't want to go anywhere either.
No, he doesn't. I spoke to him after the game last night, and I said to him, how stressful is this week coming up? And he said, "There's nothing I can do about it." He said, "But I really hope I'm still here."
Hey, listen, the rebuild show, Kent Hughes didn't say much, but one of the things he said is, "I only got 50 contracts."
Yeah.
That's the most important line from every episode that Kent Hughes said. I got 50 contracts.
I think they have to trade David Savard. You got to open spots. You got linebacker coming up.
And that's why you don't want draft picks either.
That's why,
because you don't have any more contracts.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. I would sit down with David Savard. If David Savard wants to come back as a 7 next year on a 1-year deal, I know he's had his best days. I know he's on the decline. I think he would be an ideal 7 for this club. Ideal.
Well, they're still growing and maturing, and he's a maturing influence. He's, a veteran force. He says the right things to the kids. He looks at video right, and he teaches them moments that they can use for the rest of their lives. The head coach is a forward, and it wouldn't hurt at all to have that veteran presence when they look at film all day long. I think he'd be a no-brainer to bring back. He wouldn't cost that much. He wants to be here. He'd accept his role.
There's always injuries in a hockey team. If he ends up playing half the season, every other game, he'd be perfect. It won't affect his ceiling. He already hit his ceiling a long time ago. He would just be happy to be here, right? You give him $1 million or 1.1 or 1.2 because of seniority, because he's a veteran. Everybody's happy.
And maybe you go the Paul Byron route with some kind of a player development role afterwards. Because we were talking about Arber Xhekaj earlier.
I think so.
And Xhekaj has spoken to me. He said, how much Savard has helped him. And every young Caden Gooley first played with David Savard. Lane Hudson played with David Savard. And Xhekaj told me with Savard, he says he talks to him all the time on the ice and on the bench after every shift. And after a mistake like he made last night, you could see Savard talking to him on the bench. And he keeps telling Arber, it has to still be fun. Like, don't get down on yourself too much. Have fun out there. Do your thing. And so, as an example, like last night, him sitting on the bench the whole third period, I guarantee you, I didn't watch the bench the entire third period, but I saw quite a few times David Savard talking with Arber Xhekaj, and just he's such a he's a soft, big man who he's had a lot of experience in the NHL, a lot of life experience. He is a father figure on that team without a doubt, and he's getting Arber to calm down when that switch starts to go, like he used to go with Chris Nyland, is sort of to get him to calm down a bit and play the game. So he's been even if they lose him, the impact he's had on these young defensemen will last for many, many years to come.
And you know what, you guys, the Canadiens last time I checked were 30th in goals allowed, and I actually think they have more talent than to be 30th in goals allowed. And Reinbacher's coming next year too. And if you want to keep a good defenseman style force around, I think it's beneficial to the club. I don't know why they're 30th. They should be 30th. They're too talented to be 30th in goals allowed.
Devil's advocate a bit, though. If you're going to have a 7th defenseman, do you not want to have maybe some young guys that you rotate in and out type of thing? So that's why Kent Hughes gets the big bucks.
No,
right?
I want the 7th defenseman to be, if he's rotating in and out and he's a young guy, I want him to get 27 minutes a night in Laval is what I want from him.
Yeah, I think that's what Brian was saying.
Logan Mayo, do you want him going back to Laval again?
I do. I don't think he's ready. I've watched Laval. I really enjoy going to their games and stuff. And boy, he some of his decision making, man. Engstrom is the best defenseman down there.
Well, it's an interesting take, but you're right. Like I don't think, and I've said this before, I think Logan Mailloux has a real big skill set and
offensively,
he's a nice package offensively. I don't think he has NHL reads. I don't think
not yet.
It goes. It goes in the National Hockey League. It goes too fast for his head.
Yeah,
and
so far, keep in mind his age. You guys, we got to always remember defensemen, sometimes you see nothing from them until they're 24 or 25.
Not only his age, he didn't play for a couple of years.
That hurts too.
Yeah,
I remember talking with an NHL scout a few years ago when they changed the rules where you couldn't block the forechecker anymore, the F1. And I was saying, man, this is really going to hurt guys who can't skate fast, And he said, no, it's going to hurt guys who can't think fast worse than it's going to hurt guys who can't.
I like it.
That's
I like
great.
that.
I like that one. I'm going to use that
and
one.
And it was a great line. I thought about it. And he made a couple of examples. Chris Pronger isn't the fastest skater. Thinks really fast. He said Sheldon Souray, pretty fast skater, doesn't think the game quick.
No,
and that's where it comes down. David Savard. David Savard is the slowest guy out there.
Right.
How can he still play in today's NHL? Because he thinks the game quick.
I asked Shea Weber, what's the most important characteristic of a defenseman? And I thought for sure he was going to use big body, big shot, some of the things he was great at. And he said most important characteristic of a defenseman is easily decision-making.
Yeah, and Lane Hudson. Look at Lane Hudson. How
decision-making.
Little plays he makes. Game after game after game.
So 1 week before NHL trade deadline, Brian Wilde and Stu Cowan say that if it's going to be seller or buyer, Canadiens will be sellers. Yes?
I agree.
Okay. Speaking of selling, a warehouse sale for Canuck this Saturday between 10 and 4 and Sunday between 10 and 3. Canuck has amazing winter jackets from 0 degrees to minus 35. Thank you, Brian. Women's jackets as well as accessories, toques, scarves, mittens. I've always been very, very good in those things.
In the transitions?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and so once again, the warehouse sale is going to be at 2328 Cowan, and it's going to go up to 70% off. And speaking of the warehouse sale, it's going to look something like this. We'll have a sneak peek preview for you. Look at that. Yeah, that's going to be the warehouse sale.
That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of jackets. And I can tell you that I was in a couple of days ago, guys, and got fitted with 2 jackets. I don't know if we have the pictures. Look at that. There's the fashion show. I can also tell you that over the last couple of days, they had Alex Carrier in there. They had David Savard in there.
He'd be a hard guy to fit. He's a large man.
They had Mike, well, not larger than me. They had Mike Matheson in there with his lovely wife as well, and everyone is a big fan of Canucks. So once again, their warehouse sale this weekend, up to 70% off on men and women's winter jackets. There you have it in Ville Saint Laurent on Cowan Street. Guys, thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the Canadiens in Buffalo on Saturday night. And we'll talk to you again in the next week for sure. Ciao for now.
Thank you, Tony.
You're very welcome. Thank you for everyone watching us. Once again, it's a sick podcast. Kirby Dach is out for the remainder of the season. He had surgery on his right knee. And unfortunately for him, if he didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all. I wish you all a great weekend. Special thanks to Shane Gaumont and Master Control. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. I'm Marinaro. It's the Sick Podcast.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Bittt, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.